Good afternoon. I watched this video earlier this week when Bishop Hicks spoke of belonging at the end. I began to ponder what it means to belong. As little children, we learn that we belong to a family, a school, or a church, but we really don't have a choice of where we belong, to whom we belong, or even what nationality we are. But as we get older and we go to school, we are allowed to make small choices. We pick who our friends are, what peer groups we want to be in, what clubs we want to join, or maybe what sport we want to get in on. But as an adult, we make a much wider range of choices. What line of work we're in, what city, state, or even the country we're in, and whom we want to spend the rest of our lives with. Where we belong is up to us. It's our choice. What a gift that is to have that freedom. And God offers us a similar choice. The first reading from the book of Sirach says, speaking for God, "To whichever you choose, stretch forth your hand. Before man are life and death, good and evil. Whichever he chooses shall be given him." And I didn't mean to say this was good and this was evil. I was just saying. But isn't that interesting? Whichever he chooses will be given to him. God allows us to make the choice. The one whose will is absolute lets us pick heaven or hell. Whichever we choose, we will receive. We belong where we choose to belong. And God desires for us to pick heaven. He wants us to belong to him in heaven. In the second reading, St. Paul tells us how wonderful that place is. What eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, and what has not entered the human heart, what God has prepared for those who love him. And there it is, that key, to love him. God has unimaginable, fantastic things for those who choose to love him. And this choice, though, is not just one-dimensional. It's not just me and God. He desires for every one of us, for everyone here, everyone outside of here, to choose him, to return to him the love that he lavishes on us. He wants us to be in communion with him, to share his love, and to give it back and receive it again. But that life of communion doesn't start when we're dead. It starts today. It starts now. We're in communion with him now because that work of gathering in and loving others and sharing our lives with others begins now too. That means we need to perform those work here in our heart. It starts inside us. Jesus explains what happens in your heart leads to actions that have consequences. A thought, a feeling of anger can lead eventually to murder. Another thought, a lustful feeling, could lead to adultery. These terrible actions don't come out of nowhere, and those who have committed these sins will have to account for them. But I invite you to listen again to that message. Yes, sinful thoughts lead to sinful actions, but the other side of it is loving thoughts lead to loving actions. In both cases, good and evil start in the human heart. Jesus speaks to that integrity of thought and action when he says that he has not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. The law regulates what we do, but it can't see what's in your heart. Jesus wants to destroy that disconnect that happened in humanity when original sin entered the world. He wants to have us choose to bring those two things back into alignment. What we think and what we listen to in our head becomes what we do in our bodies. He wants us to be whole again. That word holy comes from that wholeness. And when we deliberately choose to love God, we make a change to follow only him because he loves us. And when we have fallen in love with him, we want to express that love to others. So, what does God want from us? Well, he wants us to care for every sick person, to comfort every grieving person, to feed every hungry person, to clothe every naked person. That's a big job. Can we do that? Well, not by ourselves. Individually, we haven't got the resources or the time to do thousands of people who are in need. But together we can. Did you know the Catholic Church is the largest non-governmental charitable organization in the world? Ministries run by Catholics that care for others exist all over the globe. Through these ministries, the body of Christ continues the work of Jesus in the world today. And as part of that body of Christ, every Catholic participates in those ministries of feeding the hungry and clothing the naked, comforting the grieving, and caring for the sick, right here in the Diocese of Joliet in Illinois. These same ministries bring comfort to and relieve the suffering of many thousands every year. One of these, as Bishop Hicks mentioned, is the training of priests. Now, many of you know that my wife Maria and I have 3 children, all in their 20s. All 3 were baptized right over there. When Maria and I grew up in Chicago, we chose to live in the Diocese of Joliet. We chose to belong here at St. Walter. Our eldest son, Frank, is currently a transitional deacon, and that means that in about 3 months, he's going to be ordained a priest, God willing. And that means that soon he will be standing at an altar and bringing the body of Christ to people just like you, all over the Diocese of Joliet, somewhere in the Diocese of Joliet. And I don't know where, don't ask me. For nearly a year, he's been praying for us, baptizing babies, leading gravesite interment rites, marrying couples, and preaching much more eloquently than I. After he graduated from Franciscan University of Steubenville, he spent another 6 years in seminary and will graduate this spring. The costs of his seminary education, his housing, his teachers, his mentors, and formators were all funded by your contributions to the Catholic Ministry's annual appeal. I can honestly say that without the funds raised by this appeal, he would not have been able to become a priest. And this annual appeal isn't a special collection. It's a once per year, easy way for us to participate in the ministry of the wider church, one where you can reach people who never come anywhere near Roselle or St. Walter. In the bulletin, there's more information about the annual appeal, and I urge you to look at it. This is the work of the church. This is our church. Christ comes, and Christ calls us to come to the Father. He asks us to choose to belong to the family that performs such marvelous deeds. So let me ask you, do you belong to St. Walter? Do you belong to the church? Do you belong to the Lord? Then let your yes mean yes. And I urge you to give generously through your prayers and donations next weekend in the Catholic Ministry's annual appeal. And may God bless you.